By the way, one of the areas that I wanted to talk specifically, like I said earlier, about games journalists Vietnam is there's even an area, my perspective has totally changed on that over the years through my own experiences in a similar vein, which is right back then. Like, first of all, just to get to the crux of that whole issue and where I stand on it, it's a pretty simple scenario. It's not, by the way, my old take before, which was obviously I was on one side to some degree, which was I used to think like the thing that annoyed me was a lot of it was distraction for corrupt journalistic behaviour. And that essentially, to me, I'm sorry, that is the kernel of the most important aspect of that entire event. It's, as you said, that even games journalism had been infected by this approach where people collude behind the scenes, even coerce each other and essentially create a consensus that they are not being genuine and transparent about creating. They're pretending that essentially a very diverse group of people, in terms of they're all different, work for different people, all magically arrive at the same thing, which is supposed to make you, the viewer, think that must just be the only right opinion. Yeah. That's the obvious game, right?
Now, that manufacturing consensus.
Yeah. Now that obviously the genius of the way they did get that genie back in the bottle is no one does remember that detail because it's surrounded by this toxic, and I use that term actually specifically now, this toxic atmosphere that was about the idea of like, so do you agree with harassing women? Not even just journalists, just women. It was just that angle, and obviously on the surface, that's the easiest thing ever for someone to go, well, of course not. Whoa, whoever's on that side, they're the evil one. You know, it's just, it was such a clever misdirection. But essentially, that latter part, by the way, the idea of harassment, that's the part my perspective has changed on a lot, Richard. Like, I have to say, part of it was, think about my own perspective. At the time this stuff happened, I might have had, I'm going to say like 15k Twitter followers. Yeah. Maybe years later, I had 50k. Now, one thing I learned about Twitter, which is very hard to understand, unfortunately, if you've never been in this position, is it doesn't scale in a linear fashion, and the way people use Twitter has changed. So I always say famously, back in the day, when you had Twitter followers, like, you really did just follow the people you follow, and then people who follow you, right, mark on you. It was like a little tiny tribe, because back then the algorithm wasn't that good. No one used the main page anyway. Use your own feed, didn't you? Like, that was the way you did it. Whereas now it really is a thing of like, I'm going to consume. It's almost like the whole I'll see what is on Netflix today. Like, you go there, the algorithm throws some things up. If it's the right outrage, you click on that, you get in. And so the joke now is, of course you offend people, because if anyone in the world's offended, they will be served your tweet to get offended, and there will always be outrage. There will always be. So one thing I had to learn the hard way from some of these experiences is, I used to think the same exact things a lot of the idiots I complain about say. Like, I would also think, Richard, wow, this guy just blocked me immediately when I made a good point. Bloody coward. He can't even defend his position because I only had a tiny following. So I had, the 8 interactions a day that could make that seem like a reasonable statement. Another one is, I know this is something you've said something similar about publicly yourself. I used to think back in the day, well, fuck it. They're all putting me on blast. I'll put them on blast with our followers. Quote tweeting this motherfucker. There you go. Yeah. Oh, you thought it was funny when you were just dissing me when no one was seeing what you were saying. Let's see what my followers think. And I had to learn, look, I don't go as far as thinking that, again, that's like some Pearl Harbor level shit. Like, oh my God. Like, but at the same time, I know that almost no human brain can handle like thousands of inputs. And especially not when they're all telling you like, fuck you, you can't, you're wrong. In fact, you know what? I'm not even listening to what you're saying. The guy I like says you're wrong. So like that aspect of that thing, I can see, even though they did exaggerate it like it was Vietnam, I can see how that does have like traumatic elements, that just have triggering elements, that has things that do psychological damage to you. So I wanted you to talk a little bit on this angle, because I know you've also come to like a different position on that thing. It's not as simple as like, to me, Twitter, I had the ethos of the old internet. It's like, it's the Wild West, you come in here, it's the arena, you battle, you have your enemies, you have your fights, you talk about, but actually once it becomes this thing where it takes a personal or psychological toll, it did become something very different to me. So what are your thoughts on some of these things?
Yeah, so I think first of all as well, I mean, like, generally the type of people who say things like, he's blocked me, he's a coward. It's like, dude, you're not changing my mind because you're not saying anything original to begin with. It's like, it's just garbage. So I'm just filtering it out. It's not like, we're not equals. We're not having a debate, mate. You're a moron. You've just said something that has been like if you just even looked at the tweet, there's another 50 morons saying the same thing, but you think you're the guy that's discovered fucking fire in this intellectual Titanic battle. The Frost Nixon at Twitter, like, grow the fuck up, like, you're blocked, like, you're a moron. I'll never need to talk to another moron in my life as long as I live, but unfortunately, I will never have the luxury of not having to talk to a moron. So, like, people like that are just so, like, over-invested in trying to prove their own, like, intellectual efficacy, that you can just remove them from your life immediately. Whereas I've got loads of people on Twitter who actually do disagree with me, but disagree in such an interesting way. You go, oh, yeah, all right. I was like you and I, people always think we're fucking like completely like, if you took out my brain and put it in your head, all our thoughts would completely tessellate, just overlap perfectly, right? But it isn't like that. But like, for example, it's a silly little thing, really, not relevant to what we're talking about. But when you did your video on the best of 5 thing and why best of 5's actually legit and are good, you almost swayed me. I was capable of being persuaded on an issue I thought I'd made my mind up about, right? You didn't. You almost got there.
Okay.
But that, and I think that's important, that you do keep your mind open to inquiry. Sure. But somebody just coming in and just it's like trying to do a comedy routine with just a heckler in the room, just shouting "Freebird." If I have you removed, it's not because I can't handle your incredible back and forth and witty banter. It's that you're a cunt and you're ruining what I want to do, which is actually use a platform for discussion to engage with people who want to discuss things. So there's that. The other thing I'll say is, I've realized that like there's an anthropological thing going on with social media. I genuinely think our fucking ape brain, our primitive brain, is still not used to the concept of having to effectively input the considerations of more than 50 people.
Yes.
Like, think about how we used to tribe up, right? And we'd be running around, and it's there's me, there's Ugg, Thug, and Tug, right? And they're the fellow warriors, so I gotta stay strong around them. I know that, right? Like, can't show any weakness or that thing. Then there's obviously, the Som and Bomb, and they're the ladies of the tribe, the ones that are looking for prospective mates. So I better keep my shit trim, better keep my fucking drip nice, all the best loincloths, blah blah, and need to think about essentially having a prospective mate because I have this weird urge to fucking procreate that I can't quite explain in my simple brain. We all live in a tribe and everyone knows what they're doing and we all know what everyone's thinking, and they're like the familial unit, the nuclear family. It's not so far removed from those ancient times. You have a group of people that you are required to care about their opinions. When you're a kid, it's your classmates, schoolmates, your friends, your teachers, your parents. When you get a little bit older, it's the friends that you've retained from that group, plus the new friends you're meeting as you emerge and flourish into adulthood, your family to a lesser extent, and then, relationships and whatever it might be. The bottom line is, though, at no point in history was that ever 10,000 people. You didn't walk into a room, right, course, guys? Yes. I need feedback, and 10,000 voices rang out, right? That was never a thing. And back in the day, if you were a celebrity and you had a big following, if people wanted to criticize you, they either had to turn up to where you were working, right, and shout and heckle, and who got time for that, or they had to write a letter. Had to sit down and write it all down. Dear Richard, I think you are a cunt because when you said NIP are a shit org, I really like NIP. You would have to write it all down, lick the envelope, go to a mailbox, send it in. It's going to come through. It's going to be pre-screened by somebody. It's going to get to me. I'm going to read it, chuckle, fucking fold it up and throw it in the bin. It's not going to cause any harm. Now, unfortunately, the problem you've got is we have to deal with an extraordinary amount of input, not even, as you rightly point out, just from people we have curated to provide that input by virtue of following them on Twitter, but the way Twitter works is it's almost like a neural network or something, where it's like anybody sees your tweet, anybody can give you a real-time reaction to it. And the problem there is the reactions by and large don't hurt my feelings, so I'm still a little bit yeah, that's not harm, grow up. It's what comes with it. It's the shit that goes in your DMs. It's having to stay up all night because someone's trying to hack your emails, hack your Twitter, hack your fucking Facebook, you know, whatever it is. It's people trying to dox you. It's people threatening you. It's people then seeing that you're the bad guy today, and then they go after people you care about. I'm like, dude, I haven't been able to talk about any person in my life publicly for about 10 years. You know, I mean, like, with the exception of Maria when we lived together. And by the way, you know, people ever want to know how bad it can get, understand that while I was at my lowest ebb, borderline fucking suicidal, I remember you tweeting this. I did a story, I think, about Nip. I was trying to, like, slowly and steadily getting back on the horse. I did a story about NIP, and an NIP fan who was a grown man, a teacher that worked with children, said because I had written hateful things about NIP, I needed to be investigated immediately for the murder of my best friend who I just loved with all my fucking heart, and publicly put that out into the world. Now, what am I meant to do with that? What am I meant to do with the reaction to that? What am I meant to do with people saying that and thinking that about me? Am I meant to just metabolize that without there being any negative effect? And then you have to realize that nobody ever fucking gave me the benefit of the doubt for anything controversial I've ever said or anything contentious. I don't think I'm a controversial figure. People line up around the block to spit in my face digitally and to fucking say the most outrageous, hurtful things. So, you know, obviously there's no getting away from that. The psychological impact that takes on you. Like, it made me laugh. Somebody on the Four Horsemen podcast, they put a comment saying, Richard seems a little bit bitter these days. I couldn't, like, you know,
shit.
Yeah, imagine what it's like to know in your heart that you've always had the purest of intentions for an industry, to give all the best years of your life as an adult to it. For multiple generations, you know, because fans grow up and they move on, and to lose everything that you ever sort of cared about along the way, and the only thing you have left is that, but surely someone will at least respect my work, and just every day, just hate, abuse, lies being told about you, the same 5 lies told about you over and over and over and over and over. No matter how many times you correct those lies, no one cares. The same fucking lie. I just imagine what that would do to your brain. Imagine how that would make you feel. I don't need a fucking attaboy, you know, from anybody. I don't need a Richard Lewis appreciation thread, you know, that they make for, like, people who do, like, outrageously bad shit like config, everyone's sucking config off again. Like, just a drunken arsehole at events who, like, just literally gets into violent fucking, you know, or intimated violent altercations with people. Me, I act in self-defense once, so I hear about for 7 fucking years. You know, and it's like, imagine what that would do to your brain. Yes. Oh, yeah. It's so, you know, it's happened to me now multiple times when I've been the villain of the day, and the things that have been said and done to me, you know, like when you've got fucking Reddit moderators doing, like, creating, like, or finding burner accounts to fake look to, and then editing comments to make it look like I fucking pushed someone into suicide, then sharing that with a notorious harassment subreddit to the point where me and my girlfriend have to leave our house because someone has found out her name and is saying they will come to the house, murder me and rape her. Well, what do you want me to say about the internet, guys? Great place. No, I'm sorry. I fucking hate the people who did that. I hate the people who fucking are in my DMs harassing me. I hate that the community, I think I've been pretty good and diligently served, can't find anything good to say about me. Yeah. Oh, yeah, bitter. Bitter doesn't come close.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.